Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Upskilling in Wikidata for Maximum Impact, a practical workshop for botanists. We would like to start with a short introduction of us, the four co-organizers of this webinar, and also of the in-person workshop that will take place in Madrid at the International Botanical Congress in 1.5 weeks. I am Sabine. I'm a botanist and data scientist based at the Museum für Naturkunde, the Natural History Museum in Berlin, Germany. And for several years, I've been using especially Wikidata to increase discoverability and transparency of collection information. And a lot of what I've learned about Wikidata, I've learned from Siobhan.
Hi, I'm Siobhan Leachman. I am a Wikimedian from Wellington, New Zealand. I'm an independent researcher, and I've been involved with multiple biodiversity-related projects, both on and off Wiki. Joaquim.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joaquim Santos. I am from the University of Coimbra. I work at the herbarium as a collection manager. My background is in botany and ecology, but started working with data many years ago. And I'm here to show you a little bit of what we have been doing with Wikidata, and also to learn from you, and especially from experts like Siobhan. Heidi.
Hello to everyone. My name is Heidi Meudt. I am a botany curator at the National Museum in New Zealand, which is called Te Papa. And I've also been editing in Wikidata, Wikipedia, and Wikimedia Commons for about 2.5 years now, mostly on plant species, botanists, and scientific publications. And I too am very grateful to have been mentored by the one and only Siobhan. I'll just note that on our first slide here, you can see a link to this slide deck. So you can click on it now and it will have links that you can click on, or you can watch it later or share it with all of your friends and colleagues.
All of you have heard of and are probably using Wikipedia on a regular basis. But what about Wikidata? What's the difference, and how are the projects related? Wikidata is one of many Wikimedia sister projects. And here you can see a figure with the logos of all the different Wikimedia projects. And Wikidata is the one at the bottom with the barcode logo. You see also others like Wikipedia at the top and Wikimedia Commons, and maybe some of you know Wikisource. Wikidata aims to create an open and collaborative database that stores relational statements about entities. And as a sister project to Wikipedia, it's a sort of a data backbone for the encyclopedia, where pretty much anything you can think of gets an entry. While Wikipedia provides text, Wikidata stores structured data that are human and machine readable. Wikidata is a free and open knowledge base anyone can edit. It is multilingual by design. You can use it in different languages. It can be read and edited by humans and applications, so it's easy to improve a single item or several thousand at a time. The data in Wikidata can, of course, be queried in different ways, and because they are openly licensed using the Creative Commons 0 license, they can be used or reused without any restrictions. Very important for us as biologists is the role of Wikidata as a hub for external identifiers. And this whole structure, the openness, the accessibility, make Wikidata a powerful tool or way to answer really complex questions. So if you're now interested in using and editing Wikidata yourself, here's a stack of resources you can get from the slides, and which will help you after this 1-hour introduction to get started.
So I'm going to basically go into a bit more detail about Wikidata. As Sabine has said, Wikidata is made up of structured data, and that is data that's linked to other data. So thing one is linked to thing two. And that linked structure is often called a triple. So it's made up of 3 parts: a subject, a predicate, and an object. So for example, in the slide, you can see here that the botanist, well, in Meuthica, has the occupation botanist. So Meuthica's Wikidata item is linked to the Wikidata property occupation, which is then linked to the Wikidata item for botanist. As Sabine has already explained, Wikidata is multilingual. Each item expresses a concept and it's represented by the Wikidata QID. Now, this concept can be expressed in multiple languages in Wikidata. And you can also read and add data to Wikidata in many languages. So you do this by pressing the language icon at the top right of the Wikidata screen. And once you've pressed that, you press the wheel at the bottom right of the pop-up. And this takes you to the language settings for Wikidata, and you can pick what language you want Wikidata to be in, as well as the language you want to add Wikidata in, the data into Wikidata in. So anyone can edit Wikidata, whether or not you have an account. But if you do have an account, other editors are more likely to assume you're editing in good faith. If you don't have an account, your IP address will be recorded next to the history of your edits, and the community tends to be a little more suspicious about those types of edits as a result of vandalism, because vandalism does happen on these platforms. As Sabine has already explained, all the data added to Wikidata is licensed under a CC0, a Creative Commons 0 license. So this means the data is dedicated to the public domain and is able to be reused by anyone for anything. And one of the most important elements of Wikidata is that it acts as an identifier hub. So in this slide, you can see all the identifiers added to the Wikidata item for the botanist in Meuthica. Now, the text is small because there are just so many identifiers. There are, if you look closely, library identifiers, archive identifiers, online encyclopedia identifiers, botany database identifiers, natural history institution identifiers, and genealogical database identifiers. So what Wikidata actually acts as a crosswalk or a bridge between one institution's data and another institution's data. And Wikidata can be queryable. So if you know the Sparkle query language, you can use the Wikidata query service to actually query Wikidata. And the query service actually allows you to visualize that data. So in this example here, you can see on the left, there's a map of all the herbaria, the places of all the herbaria around New Zealand. And that was produced via a Sparkle query. But I am not a Sparkle expert. And so I do most of my querying via the much more simple tool called the Wikidata Query Builder. And you can see here an example of it in the slide where I've asked for items that are an instance of herbarium in the country, New Zealand. So I'm going to pass on to Heidi. Heidi, you're muted.
Thank you. So another way that Wikidata is extremely useful to us botanists, scientists, and librarians is that other platforms link to Wikidata using the Wikidata identifier or QID. So such sites as the ones we're showing here, Biodiversity Heritage Library on the left and Bionomia website on the right, pull information about collectors and other people and display that information on their pages, which you can see in red. This reuse of Wikidata information means we, botanists or the general public, can access the exact same information from multiple websites. And it helps us disambiguate botanists and collectors much more easily and with confidence. So there are a number of ways to link collections information and institutions with the botanists and botanical collectors in your collection databases in Wikidata. Here are some examples of a few of the Wikidata properties and identifiers that can be used to do this for a botanical collector. So for example, you can see that we have this botanical collector from New Zealand, Nancy Adams, and this is her Wikidata item. And on her Wikidata item, you can see Wikidata properties, collection items at, and archives at. And then in this instance, just one institution is listed, but you can actually enter multiple institutions and multiple references for those institutions for each property. You can also see an example of a museum identifier being added here. So our museum, Te Papa, has this collector listed as person identifier 2583, and we're able to actually add that in to her Wikidata item. Now, on the flip side of that, if we now go into our database at Te Papa, we can also link to Wikidata within our institutional collection database. So we have a straightforward way of doing this where I work at Te Papa, and we can add Wikidata and other identifiers to our database. So we use EMU as our database, and we can do this in two places. This will, of course, differ from any collection database that you're using, but it should be possible. First, in this tab of numbers and identifiers in EMU, we can add the Wikidata QID for the collector Nancy Adams. We can add other IDs, such as her IPNI value, shown here. And then we can also add the Wikidata link to the item, as well as other links to other identifiers, such as bionomia. And then we can tell our database whether we want this to be publicly visible on our collections online database and published there. And so when you go to the website that pulls information from our database, you can see the item for Nancy Adams, and you can see the links that we've publicly allowed to happen for Wikidata and other identifiers.
So, yeah, when you are adding information to Wikidata, you are enriching data that becomes discoverable to people and to machines. And that information can be interlinked, either if you are a human searching for information, or if you are a machine trying to interlink things. So the pace at which data can be reached and interlinked increases every time you enrich Wikidata. Here we see a map where you have plotted every Wikidata entities that has associated coordinates, geographic coordinates. As you can see, there is in Wikidata a lot more information about the North than the Global South. So when you are adding or enriching data to Wikidata, you might try to cover things that have not been covered before, and this way try to find that balance about the information available to everyone. Here again, you have this slide where you can find resources if you want to become a Wikidata editor. And we are always talking about this because this is so important. You are not alone. You have resources that you can consult to help you become an editor.
Okay, so I'm going to show you what a Wikidata item actually looks like. It has a label, again, which we've explained can be in multiple languages, along with the Wikidata identifier, which we've been explaining is called a QID. The items should have a description, which again could be in multiple languages. It also has an alias section called an also known as section. Now, I personally prioritize adding aliases because this reduces the chance of duplicate items being made, and it also helps people actually find the data. There are statements, which is how the data is actually added to Wikidata, and these statements should be referenced. And there are two main ways to reference a statement. It's either through a stated in statement, which links to another Wikidata item, or reference URL, which links to the website in which you found the information. There's also a separate section at the bottom of the item for identifiers, and this section is automatically created as soon as you add the first Wikidata item, the first identifier to the Wikidata item. So now we're going to go on to the bit that's making me a little bit nervous. I'm going to stop sharing. and hopefully, if things go to plan, make a Wikidata item for a botanist. Come on. No, that's not going to work. Sorry, I'm just going to try and there we go. Okay. Exit. Okay, and I'm going to start sharing again. Sorry about this, guys, just a little bit slow. Right, so we're actually going to Joaquim's spreadsheet, where he has shared a whole load of collectors from his herbarium. And I've gone through and I found a particular collector who I know is not in Wikidata because I've searched previously beforehand. And it's this man here. So I'm actually going to copy his name and I'm going to go to Wikidata. And this is something I've done earlier. So I'll just do, I basically searched on his name just to double check because people are updating Wikidata all the time. So as a result of this, I always double check before I create an item because I try not to create duplicates. We've searched for him and he's not coming up. So there's actually two ways you can create a new item after you've searched for him. You can either go to the left side and the fourth one down, it says create new item, or after you've searched and he doesn't appear, you get that there. So I'm just going to go in and create an item for him. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I only speak English, so that's the language I'm going to be editing in. Can everyone see this? Do you need it a little bit larger? I might just increase it a little bit. Now, this particular person, I know he is a cleric. He's a botanist and a botanical collector. And so I've added that in. And I'm also going to add a couple of aliases of his because some computer systems do not like how those letters, the accents above the letters are. Some drop them off. I always do the name without those as well. And then you put a pipe to separate it at the stage. I'm not going to do it again. And I'm actually going to go just abbreviate his first name. And so for me, that looks sufficient for the full name, the description, and now I can then press create. We're going to create an item. Right. So that's his Wikidata QID. This is my username. And you may very well see things on this page, which when you go in to edit Wikidata, it may not appear the same, look the same. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I have been editing Wikidata for quite a while, and so I've got a whole load of tools and gadgets I use to make my editing easier. So if you're a new editor to Wikidata and you want to add some tools to make your editing easier, you go to the top, you go Preferences, and then you go to Gadgets. And there's three particular gadgets I think are really useful. There is the merge, but as very new editors, I would say just hold off on doing merges. Just wait until you get used to editing Wikidata. But there's things like, I'm scrolling down slowly, so hopefully you don't feel a little bit sick. Duplicate references is one that I would click for newbies. Current date is definitely one I would click because that means that when you use the retrieved property, when you're adding a reference, it just automatically generates it. And the last one I really like to recommend is rearrange values as well. So those are the three that I'd recommend to start off with. So I'm going to scroll up and go back to my item. Hope it's still there. Yes. Now at the moment, all he's got is a label, a description, and some aliases. There are no statements, no data, no links to anything. So I'm actually going to add a statement first. And the first one I do for humans is, well, actually just go back and hopefully it'll pop up again. No, let's try again. I just wanted to, yeah. Oh, well, okay. There was an instance of or a subclass of. Those are the two main first statements on most items. In this particular case, he's an instance of human. but hopefully someone is putting in the chat the link that'll tell you the difference between those two types of initial statements on an item, instance of or subclass of. So I'm just going to say instance of human, publish. I like adding references after I've added the statements because, as I explained in the gadgets, you can copy those references. So you only have to add them once after you've refreshed stuff, and then you can copy them on multiple statements. So I do the data first and then the references, but that's just how I edit. Other people might do it differently. So I'm also going to have a sex and gender statement. Now I recognize that this is an inferred thing, but this guy happens to be a Catholic priest and he's referred to in secondary sources as father this, and so I'm inferring and assuming he's male. I'm also going to put occupations. Oh, if I spell it correctly. And you can see now I've done the instance of human, things are starting to pop up when I start these things. So I'm going to put cleric because I don't know what, I know he's Catholic, but I'm not religious, so I don't understand that part of information. So I'm using quite a general term. There are more specific terms that would likely apply to this man, but that's for someone with that knowledge to be able to put into Wikidata. I'd much rather go general and be accurate than be wrong. So he's a member of religion. I know he's a botanist. And I also know he's a botanical collector. Now, I'm going to publish that, and I'm actually going to refresh it just so that I can show what it looks like. Nothing's changed, so that's fine. So I'm going to start by showing you how to reference these statements. So one of the things I've got is a Harvard University, this is the Harvard Index of Botanists, and this is him. I know this is him because I've done research on him. And at the top, it's probably very hard to see, but there is an identifier up there. So I'm actually going to add that identifier to the item so that I can use that identifier to reference the fact he's a botanist. So I'm going to go back, which one? There he is. Add a statement. You can see that there's currently no identifier section. So this is going to automatically generate it because I'm adding it. Now just put Harvard, and it's the first thing, the Harvard Index of Botanists. Add the identifier in there. I will actually say this is, I like putting the retrieve date, but other people go extra and add other information. And you know how I said one of the gadgets supplies the actual date? This is the date at the time for Wikidata, and it automatically does it for me because I'm in New Zealand. Sometimes the dates are out and are slightly different. And so this will do the correct date for me, which is normally the US date. So I'm going to publish that. And it just sits there, but as soon as you hit refresh, there's your identifier section automatically generated. Another of the tools that I did was the copy references. That's what this thing is. So you just press it. And that Harvard Index of Botanists, so he's a botanist. So I'm going to add it there. And there's the reference has been added. I'll refresh it and I'll show you what it looks like. And there's the reference that he's a botanist. Another reference is this one. I'll use as a URL. This is the global plants. It's the same collector. It says he's actually a plant collector. So I'll copy the URL. I'll go in, and this time I can use that as a reference for this. And I just put URL, and the first one that pops up is reference URL, which is correct. Paste it in there. And they also add a retrieve date. Again, that gadget automatically generates the date, and I go publish. Now, one of the important things about this dude is, there's another tool that brings that up that tells me now I've added it, that it's there. That's okay, you can ignore that. That's just a tool I use it. One of the important things for me when I'm doing this is I really, I cannot emphasize enough, really want to find the death date of people. Either they have an orchid, which is great because then I can put them in binomia and they're living, or they have a death date. If they don't have an orchid, I hope that they have a death date. So death date, date of death. Now, I've got a couple of sources for this, one of which I actually think's wrong, but I'm going to cite it anyway, because it's a source and someone else needs to come along and research this. It's just my belief this it's wrong. And it's this source here. Plant genera named after people. It's got a Wikidata item. So I'm actually going to use the stated in reference, which is where the type of statement we use when we're referencing a Wikidata item. So I'm going to go back and go, and I know the date was 1839. Because I've done it. I could show you the page. I'll show you the page just to prove it. Yeah, you can see it there. I'll try and increase the size so you can, oh, whoops, wrong way. It's not going to do it. Anyway, the date there is 1839. That's his death date in this book. I personally think this is wrong, but I'm going to state it's a reference. So, and if someone doesn't like it and can actually prove it and find another reference, they can always deprecate this value. So state it in. And I also know the page, 161. I'm pretty sure that was it. Let me just double check. Yep, 161. So that they know where to go to find that information and publish. Now, the other piece of information, that is a constraint violation. It's nothing to get concerned about. It's just saying, hey, if you've got this, can you add the birth date, please? I don't have the birth date. I don't know his birth date. So I'm just going to ignore that. What I do have is another source which says it's in French, and I don't speak French. I had to use Google Translate, so I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure he was alive around 1842, according to this source, and possibly deceased by 1842. And this source says his first date collected was 1841, which is why one of the reasons I'm having a bit of difficulty with the 1838 date, because a dead person can't go out and pick plants. So, but Wikidata can have multiple, it's not a truth, it's verifiable sources. So you can have dates that say 8th of December 1961, 8th of December 1962, 8th of December 1963 are all, as a birth date perhaps, are all legitimate. If you've got sources to back those up, and eventually, hopefully, someone goes away and finds the official birth certificate and goes, oh, it's 8th of December 1963, and deprecates the other statements to say the reason and puts a reason for deprecation inaccurate value. So Wikidata is able to cover these complexities. So I'm actually going to add another statement here, and I'm going to go 1842 based on that other reference, and I'm going to go sourcing circumstances circa, which means, it's an approximate date. We don't know exactly. And I'm actually going to go back to that, and I'm going to copy that PDF, and it's page 74, URL. Retrieved, put the date. And again, there'll be a constraint. Should be one single best value. Well, in my opinion, there isn't a best value. So you just have to live with the difficulty in those flags. It's not going to hurt anybody to have a flag on a statement. It's fine. Okay, so what we've got here is we've now got a botanist with a description. Hopefully other people will come along and translate that description in other languages. So there are bots that do this as well. There's statements, he's a human, he's likely male, he's a cleric, a botanist and botanical collector, possibly died in the mid-1800s, according to these dates, and he has an identifier. And that's sufficient for the time being. You could put heaps of other information in here. I know he worked in Persia, for example. I know we may be able to know even the town he worked in, so we could add that sort of data. But at the moment, that's sufficient now to be able to go and take that and reuse that Wikidata item. And I'm actually going to go reuse this now in Binomia. So I'm logging in with my own ORCID so that I'm able to edit this. I'm going to press help others. add someone. Going to put the Wikidata item QID there and go add and hope it actually works. Yep, there he is. So we're immediately reusing him. There he is. So we can actually go look at the specimen he collected. We can double check if that specimen says 1842, we know the 1839 is wrong. And then we can attribute, say, yep, that's him, because that's his full name. I don't know whether this G, I'd have to go and check, do more working out on labels, checking the labels, checking the, you know, whether it's in Persia or not, because I know that's where he collected, before I am confident enough to attribute those. But one's enough. I'm going to make it public, because he's dead, so he doesn't have privacy issues. If he's a living, he will be in charge of his own profile. Make public. And then this is his identifier, which just his binomial identifier happens to be exactly the same as the QID. I'm going to go back, edit, binomial ID, paste that there, publish. And so not only have we just created a Wikidata item, we've now reused that Wikidata item. And that's me, finished. I'm going to now start the slides up again. Right. Give me a second. Can everyone see the slides?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
So as we've seen now in the example of Bionomia, other open source tools are using data from Wikidata to analyze or visualize information. And we have now another example, and this tool is called Scholia, and it's using data from Wikidata to visualize information. This graph here you see on the left is the visualization of Inés Mejia's Wikidata item, and it shows the links between her item and other Wikidata items and the relationships among them. So this knowledge graph visualizes links, for example, to institutions, housing, material collected by her, to collaborators, and, for example, to expeditions in which she participated. So the same kind of visualization can, of course, also be done for expeditions. And there's also an active group. Some of us are part of creating identifiers for expeditions and connecting these collecting events with other entities. And in Scholia, you can visualize what information is already linked to an expedition. And here you can see one of Inés Mejia's expeditions from, can't remember now which one, 1926 and 27. So you can see links to localities she visited during that expedition, to institutions housing specimens or archival material, and it can also link to publications about results from those field trips.
So as you have seen, Wikidata is like an open database that anybody can contribute to. And we have this group of research expeditions. Most of us work on collections. So research expeditions are a source of specimens, but it can also be used for other purposes. So we have been discussing which properties we can use to describe expeditions. And some obvious ones are the start time, when did it started, when did it end, the start point. And you have also this property called via, which is an itinerary, so a list of localities visited during the expedition and where it ended. So because Wikidata is all interlinked, each one of those localities has its own Wikidata entity with more information like photographs and geographic coordinates. So using this, we can automatically, using a machine, create visualizations for expeditions that we have done. And it's in this slide, for example, this 1926-27 expedition of Inés Mejía, where she departed from San Francisco and went through a lot of places. And without human intervention, we just created a script that queries Wikidata and creates these beautiful map visualizations showing us where she went during these expeditions. Another way or another interesting feature is that Wikidata can be used in other sources, in other places, as you have seen with Binomia. And one of the most important platforms for biodiversity is GBIF, the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, where collections and observation and people publish observations of biodiversity. So what we are aiming to do is that collections publish their specimens, identifying the research expedition using a Wikidata identifier, so we can plot specimens collected through that during that expedition on the same map of the expedition, and we have done so. There are just like those research expeditions on GBIF, but we can also create a manual list of specimens. So we created a list of the specimens collected during this Mejía expedition, and we have added them to the map, and so you can go through all the expedition and seeing what she was collecting. Okay, so that was it.
That's the formal part of the Zoom meeting over. We've now got space for questions from anybody. Basically, you can raise your virtual hand, you can unmute your mic and just ask questions, or we can go through any of the questions that are in the documents. And I'm going to actually get out of this, hopefully. There.
We've got a good question in the document from Sean. And this is a good question. So he's saying, regarding dates of birth and death, is it appropriate to add this information if it's not officially published? For example, if you email a botanist for their date of birth, if there's no official published source to reference, would that be accepted? How would you indicate this in their Wikidata record?
I wouldn't. If the person's living, they have a right to privacy. If you're, I mean, obviously, if they are okay with you using their birth date in Wikidata, I mean, they've got to know the implications, but I would not do it unless it's a published source myself. No. I don't think that's appropriate because it's, you know, some people don't want their birth names known, and it's an important piece of personal information. And I, you know, unless I've got a reference for it, I don't use it. Yeah, I don't think that's appropriate at all. That would be my answer.
I have a question. Hi, you spoke very quickly earlier about, it wasn't decommissioning, but if you saw something that was incorrect, you're an expert, and you see something to make it less important.
It's oh gosh, now sorry, it's late at night and my brain's just
deprecation
gone. Thank you. Deprecation. You can deprecate an item, and so there is a way to go in and say not the item, you can deprecate the statement. So you can go in and you can say in fact I could probably do it live. I'll share my screen again and I'll show you. Share, and I'll just go to the and I'll go to his item, and I will go down, and if I want to deprecate something, say I don't like his death date, I'm just going to have to move the Zoom photos a little bit, and so I would press edit. I'm assuming you guys can see this. Yeah, okay, and see these little dots here? At the moment it's the normal statement. There's you can do preferential, but the one I would do is preferred rank, normal rank, deprecated rank. So if I didn't like this date, but I haven't done enough information for me to be certain about this, he may very well have died 29th of December 1839, and the dates are wrong on the specimens because they were sent to the herbarium in 1841. I don't know enough, so I won't do this, but if I wanted to, I could press that. I'll actually revert it. I will publish it and then I'll revert it back and say publish just to show you what it is. It looks like that. It goes pink. And you've also got, you can add a qualifier and go reason or preferred rank or deprecated rank. And there's a whole range of them. And I would go inaccurate for this one. Inaccurate. Hopefully it comes in an incorrect value. There you go. Or similar. But I'm actually going to put that back because I don't know enough to feel confident. And this is a published source of his death date. So until someone comes along and tells me that's not right, I'm happy. I just really think it's wrong. That's a personal belief. Yeah. I know Mia just mentioned about gadgets. Okay, there's lots of them. So you've got, when you're up in your, if you're looking at your account, you've got your sandbox and then you've got preferences. You go to preferences. And there's again a whole range of things you can change. And the gadgets are this tab here. And there are multiple Wikidata-centric gadgets that you can tick that can help you with your editing. And it gives a very brief description as to what it does and what it allows you to do. There's also all these Wikidata tools that aren't necessarily gadgets, they're other tools that you can also add to help you with your editing. Some, to me, are of no use because I am not an administrative person. I don't use them for particular workflows. Like some of these that I've clicked out of curiosity, had a play, and I never use them. But some I use all the time. I use merge, I use move, I use move claim, all of, there's plenty of them I do. And those, but if you're starting out, I'd have a go. And if you don't use it, I'd remove it, untick it, or just leave it. Yeah. The Wikidata tools side of things. All these people spend a lot of time creating tools, and hopefully they'll be able to tell you how to actually put them in and use them. But this is like a step. If you're just new, I would stick to the gadgets, get used to editing Wikidata, get frustrated with the fact that Wikidata doesn't do what you want, and then go looking for a tool that solves your problem. That's how I've done it. Andrea, I can see your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the webinar. So I'm going to try to phrase this question because it's sort of, I have many in my head. These are amazing tools for curation of specimens, but the thing that I have become really interested in learning more about is how these tools are being adopted by the humanities. So who in the history of science, historians of science are using these tools, and where are they getting together to talk about these things? Because I'm in the natural history collections world, I'm a botanist, I'm not someone in the humanities. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
The library folk are on. They're just in and on and doing. Humanities in general seem to be, in my opinion, lagging behind the use of these. That's not to say there aren't people doing work in this area, but not to the same extent as perhaps some of the scientists. But that could just be what I'm exposed to and what I'm interested in. I can't speak for everything that happens on Wikidata. I've got quite a niche area of expertise when it comes to what I like doing. But it just seems to me that it is an area ripe for humanities people to dive into and to use. Yeah.
I would like to add to this. So I work at the Natural History Museum, but we have a group of humanities people working with us, mostly historians, and so I'm trying to empower them or to show them the value of using these identifiers. And I think this is important to highlight this again and again, that if they write their books or their long articles and text about historical contexts and all the collecting practices and so on, it is also important to use identifiers to be sure that we're talking about the same events, the same people. We really need these identifiers to unambiguously identify persons and, for example, expeditions. And this is something they're only slowly picking up, that this should be thought together. And this is also something I experience when talking to biologists, zoologists, paleontologists in our museum. But this is, I think, something we need to continue, that this should become more good practice of science to use identifiers in publications. This is something we probably should also discuss with editors of journals, that this should be added more consistently. And then, of course, then to show the value. And in the humanities, I feel that, of course, there are DH people, digital humanities scholars, who are using tools like Wikidata already, but we need to advocate. And I see a lot of overlap and interesting fields where we can work together, like in the multi or transdisciplinary work relating to our collections, because many of our natural history collection agents have also collected ethnological or ethnographical objects. And so we have an overlap of people, and this is something we're trying to showcase and to show the value of opening up this information that can then also be used by the humanities people.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, there is something in the document questioning about what if a botanist is willing to have their date of birth known? Is it okay to put it to Wikidata without an official date?
Yeah, there's plenty of, yeah, I'd do it.
I added my own date to my Wikidata profile, so without any reference. Yeah. So it is just a date that
plenty of data in Wikidata unreferenced. It's not ideal. I mean, the whole point of it, to have the referencing, is to be able to point to the place you got the fact from. I mean, you could put, I suppose, as your reference, Joaquim, supplied by person, there must be a way of doing it to say you supplied it, but I've never thought of doing it that myself. But yeah, exactly. Tamsin says tell them to put it in the orchid. That's good. I mean, yeah, so if they have an orchid, that's the thing. If everyone on this call gets an orchid, please, can you get an orchid, please, and put your institution in it so I can disambiguate you, so I can then make sure that your publications, your attributions and your citation metrics go up. Yeah, I'm working on at the moment the wikifying the International Botanical Congress, and one of my frustrations is that some of the postdocs do not yet have an orchid. They've only published 1 or 2 papers, and whoever's looking after them should tell them that they need an orchid. Yeah.
Stuart is suggesting that the Library of Congress is a good published source for many people here. Birth. I was not aware of that. It's good to know.
Yes, yeah, they've got stuff, but I know New Zealand puts their information through the Library of Congress as well. So write a history and want to give someone an identifier. How do you go about create a Wikidata item for them? There's your identifier, the QID. So Mary's asked, she's writing a history on someone and wants them to have an identifier. They don't have any identifiers. Wikidata's your, that's why you have Wikidata. It's why I do a lot of my stuff. I'd find women collectors who don't have the Harvard Index of Botanists ID. They don't have anything about them. They're just their name, Miss Mary Smith. And somehow I managed to track down that Miss Mary Smith is Miss Mary Elizabeth. I know normally a very unusual middle name Smith. And I can find out this person, and I can't find an identifier. But I found her birth and death dates, etc. In sort of, I don't know, trawling through the Internet Archive, looking at genealogical stuff. I will then create a Wikidata item for her. I will put her into Binomia, and by putting her into Binomia, I've not only created a Wikidata identifier for her, I've created a Binomia identifier for her. Her Wikidata item will not disappear because it's got an identifier attached to it, and she is now much more visible and open for scholars to find more about her. Yeah.
And in this Wikidata item, you could also connect to collaborators, to people the person was corresponding with, co-collector, co-authors, and so on. So it's also useful for academic networks, for historical research, friends. Yeah, you can add whatever you want. And if you need help with that, you can also contact us, and we can give you a hand until you feel more comfortable to do it on your own.
Yeah.
This also has to do with Wikipedia. So, you know, Wikipedia has a notability criterion where you need to reach a certain level before you can get a Wikipedia page. And for some people, we don't know if they're notable enough, but if you start adding to their Wikidata item references, identifiers, statements, and building this profile for them, other people might go, hey, actually, this person's now notable. I'm going to write a Wikipedia page for them, or you could also do that yourself. So Wikidata is kind of a step in the right direction for creating information to be able to do this, especially for minorities, women, and other people who are not well represented in Wikipedia.
I've had the exact thing happen where I've created a Wikidata item for a botanical collector, botanist botanical collector, done a lot of research on her for this Wikidata item. And a scholar in the Midwest of America, who I'm friends on LinkedIn now, has come along and tracked me down, thanked me for it, and explained that she'd just published this article on this particular scholar because the institution she was at holds a lot of this botanist's specimens and also her archives. And I said, let me take care of that for you. I added archives at statement. Unfortunately, I don't think the herbarium was actually digitized and put into GBIF. So I couldn't put it into Binomia and then link her to it. I can put her into Binomia, but there were no specimens to link to her because most of them were at this institution that hadn't digitized the herbarium. But I could now also put the scholarly article into Wikidata and say main subject, my botanist that I've just been working on in Wikidata. So there's heaps of ways of interconnecting all this data in ways that sometimes you don't think is impactful, and then all of a sudden it is. For example, Google scrapes Wikidata for search results. So although you may not have, unlike Wikipedia, which is normally, the article's normally the first 1, 2, or 3 search result when you do a Google search or an internet search engine search, Wikidata does come up lower than that, but it does actually come up. So it's a really quite powerful tool for raising the profile of those groups and those people who are less likely to be regarded as notable for Wikipedia, or you want to make just even the playing field, really. Yeah.
Siobhan, we're just about out of time. Would you mind resharing the slides so we can just do the last slide, which is, I've just posted in the chat, just thanking everyone for coming. We still will stick around for more questions. We're happy to stay on longer if need be, but we do have a very quick 2-minute survey. We'd love to know your thoughts about how you thought this webinar went and get your feedback for this and future events. Yeah, just thanks everyone for coming. We hope we've got some new Wikidata editors in our midst, and we're very happy for you to contact us at any time if you need help or tips. And we're willing to stick around if anyone wants to get help signing up or continue the conversation. And I think, yep, here once again is that slide.
Yeah, if you take nothing away, take the slide away. It's got everything you need.
But yeah, thanks again, and we hope to see everyone soon and that you are all happy editing Wikidata very soon. But please stay on if you'd like to chat with us further.
And please share also the information about the IBC workshop, because we're still hoping to get more participants. So anyone attending IBC or knowing of colleagues who might be interested, please share the information.
Yeah, sign up for the workshop.
That workshop is actually going to be 5 hours long, and you are going to be editing
By
hands-on.
the end of it, you'll be able to make a Wikidata item. We'll show you how to do images, add images to your Wikidata item. We'll show you how to add a publication to Wikidata. We'll show you how to link everything. Yeah, by the end of it.
Species, yeah.
Yeah, taxon, yeah, taxa, you name it.
Thank you very much all for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Great to see you.